Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Today we're talking about lung health, but it's not just lung health. Now, you're seeing us live on YouTube and Facebook. Please subscribe, share. And we used to have a library account, but they wiped that out. So now everything's on Odyssey. So this is more of a free, where we can say things like, okay, where you can say those like without rubbing your hand in front of your face. Okay, it has less censorship. So please subscribe on YouTube, but also go to Odyssey, drjohnbergman.com, BitChute, as well as the Dr. B VIP. And all those that have subscribed to Dr. B VIP, God bless you. Thank you. I really appreciate your support. But man, when you're on that, you can get the handouts, you can get the URLs. So share the information because this is vital. Extreme Health Academy. If you have any health challenges, I was on 2-hour webinar this past Sunday. I'm there at least once a month and answering questions as well. It was a blast. I mean, to talk to people in like South Africa, to see the challenges they're going through, not just health challenges, but nobody in here probably realizes it, but there's actually societal challenges going on in other parts of the world, not here in commie California. Okay, yes, comrade, don't worry. Okay, so subscribe. Now let's look at the respiratory system. Now I always do a talk in November, because there's, as the cold settles in, there's less vitamin D. There's also a weakening the immune system. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but around the holidays, they're associated with elevation in sugar in people's diets. Yeah, it's called baked goods. Okay. Achoo! So you're going to get achoo! Breathing. Didn't that seem real? Coughing. Sneezing. You want to clear out an elevator now? Just sneeze. I mean, just for shits and giggles. It's fun, even if you don't have to, okay? Okay, so we got to breathe nasal. I want to show you how to breathe, okay? And there's a difference between human breathing and American breathing, okay? So now look at the person next to you, and what you're going to do is you're both going to take a deep breathe and one time. Now, I'm going to breathe incorrectly the first time. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what just happened? Yep. Oh, shoot, that person in the front's breathing normal. So what just happened is your tummy went in and your chest went up. That's horrible. You're using the top third of your lungs. That's a disgusting way to breathe. That's not how humans are designed. Okay, when you breathe, you have this diaphragm that comes down and the tummy's got to come out. Okay, the chest shouldn't be moving on deep diaphragmatic breathing. Now, when you're breathing in through the nose, you can create nitrous oxide, okay, that bronchodilates, opens up the tubes to the lungs, and it also opens up the blood vessels. So this is huge. Now, if you're breathing in through the nose, out through the nose, that will also clean up some of the sinuses. It will desensitize the mucous membranes, allowing you to breathe in through the nose. But since most of you haven't blown your nose yet, for safety's sake, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. That way we don't have boogers hanging out. Okay, when you have some Kleenexes handy, it'll be really nice. So how you learn how to diaphragmatic breathe, because I'm telling you, I teach everybody how to do this, and it's hard. So put one hand on your tummy, and what I say is, because people will forget, and I literally will say this to patients, I'm going to punch you in the stomach. Okay, and you know what they say? They look at me like, is he really that crazy? Okay, so think of this, because I want you to have that visual, because when you're going to punch in the stomach, the tummy goes in, right? Okay? And you're not going to be breathing in when the tummy goes in. So on 3, you're going to push it in and blow out your ear. You're going to 1, 2, 3, blow out. Now breathe in and push out. Blow out and push in. Breathe in and push out. Blow out and push in. So the chest shouldn't be moving. Breathe in and push out. So now you're diaphragmatic breathing. I know. And you're going to say, dude, that's the clean high. Okay, because you're using the bottom 2/3 of your lungs. So when you're in a stress state, then I would tell the students that way back when you're in a stress state, your little brain burns 90% of the body's oxygen. Okay, and so if you're getting a stressed state, diaphragmatic breathing helps a lot. So if you happen to be, at a relative's house this Thanksgiving, and for some reason they're watching CNN, NBC, or ABC, and you see this ticker tape of fear on the bottom, okay, and you start to get that anxiety, you're not going to be able to digest the turkey or Thanksgiving dinner. So diaphragmatic breathe. Just like it's a bellows. It works 100% of the time. Nasal diaphragmatic breathing is hugely important for brain function and anxiety. Now, all of this stuff, the nervous system regulates the breathing. You've got the cardiac and respiratory center up here at the base of the brain. That's also the parasympathetic nervous system. You got the nerve supply to the diaphragm, that breathing muscle is right here from the phrenic nerve. You've got the carotid artery that comes up and splits in internal and external. And right at that junction, you have a chemical receptor or chemoreceptor, and that checks the carbon dioxide level of the blood. And you've got a pressure receptor that checks the pressure. So you've got all this stuff in the neck. Can you imagine if you had a neck problem, like a, football injury, motorcycle injury, I don't know, you're run over by a car or something a few years ago? Okay, do you think that might alter the function? Yes or yes? So obviously you got to get the structure checked. But that sympathetic nervous system, think of the fight or flight. Think of the stress that people are under. Okay, the stress of not getting the Voldemort shot. Okay, and because we got to use code words because we can't have the Ministry of Truth, which is really the Ministry of Lies. Okay, censoring this stuff because we still got to get the information out. But let's say that you needed a forced medical procedure or you would lose your job. Are you going to be breathing like this? Yeah, of course, if you don't like your job. But then when you find out that you don't qualify for unemployment because we have a tyrannical government, what are you going to breathe like? Okay? Like there's a tiger outside of the door. So the sympathetic nervous system, when you're in that fight or flight state, and that's physical, chemical, or emotional stress, you're not going to be breathing well. That parasympathetic, that rest, digest, and repair, you're going to be breathing well. Okay. Now, C3, C4, C5 keeps you alive. That is the nerve to the diaphragm. And this is how. I just asked Dr. Iden this morning. I said, remember that mnemonic for the diaphragm? And he looked at me with that scared look on his face like most students would do way back when. And I said C3, and then he types up C3, C4, C5 keeps you alive. Okay, so the mnemonics help not just to pass the boards, but when your boss yells at you. What's the nerve to the diaphragm? What's the origin? Okay, so now we've got three stressors. We got physical, chemical, and emotional stress. Now think of this. Why are the lungs going up and down? Because they're funneling blood to that. Why do you got the sensors here? It's checking the carbon dioxide levels of the blood. So when carbon dioxide levels go up, then the heart rate increases in order to get more blood to the oxygen so they can do the oxygen transfer. When the carbon dioxide levels go down, the heart rate slows down. So that breathing is intimately connected to the heart and intimately connected to the carbon dioxide levels in the blood. And I know you're thinking, gosh, why don't we just limit or increase the carbon dioxide by breathing in our own waste? No, that's actually not good for you. So we have physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. And so we got blood that's going to go through the lungs. Now, if the blood is healthy, it can do a good oxygen transfer. Under any kind of stress, and this is physical, chemical, or emotional stress, your body produces less stomach acid. That means you have less available amino acids. And you're only alive because you got the amino acids from the proteins, the fatty acids from the fats, and the usable sugars from the carbohydrates. That's the only reason your digestion keeps you alive. But if you're in a stressed state, you don't have the stomach acid, so the blood cells start clumping together. And that's why you have an aggregation of the cells. And if the aggregation of the cells gets worse, then they start clumping together. So what does that do? That creates a crappy surface area because the red blood cells are supposed to be two frisbees glued together. It's a biconcave disc. And you need minerals in order to have that hemoglobin, that iron, bind to that. So this is hugely important that digestion is good in order to have the red blood cells good. Because, I mean, look at it. You got three examples of blood cells. You got the beautiful frisbees on the bottom left. You got those mildly stressed in the middle. You got extremely stressed on the other side. I mean, I'm seeing stuff that I've never seen in years where massive aggregation, massive clumping together of those blood cells with a massive fibrin formation that lines on the back. And that is just horrific. And I'm seeing this in a lot of people who have had a certain medical procedure that's forced on them that we can't talk about, that doesn't have any long-term studies. We can't talk about that, but that's what the blood looks like. So imagine you got the lungs. Now, the lungs are a collection of these little grape sacs called alveoli. And they got to open and close all the time. Okay, so they got to be flexible, right? But you've got to get the blood cells down to almost one cellular level to get that carbon dioxide oxygen transfer. So you're giving up the carbon dioxide and taking in oxygen. Now, there's a lubricant around each one of those alveoli sacs. It's called surfactant. Now, if you're fully hydrated, you get, a good 1.5 liters of water a day if you're, a larger normal adult. Okay. If you're dehydrated, though, you can't produce the surfactant. Now, the surfactant is like a clear fluid. It's like WD-40. Thin, clear, allows the lubricant, allows the oxygen, carbon dioxide transfer. It's fantastic. If you're dehydrated at all, you produce a thick mucus to protect it. And the oxygen can't do it. This is why when we talk about people with asthma, they have 10 times the amount of mucus that a normal human should have. And it's mainly from dehydration. Of course, the inhaled steroids that they take actually damage and increase mucus production and cause a perpetuation of it, but it does force those bronchus and bronchioles open. Now, it's interesting because acute psychologic stress. Now, I'm not just talking about the inane ticker tape that goes along the bottom that we've been looking at for the last 20 months. Okay, wait, what was that comment by, it was either Hitler or Goebbels? If a lie is told long enough and loud enough, people tend to believe it. Okay, so that ticker tape, has that been having a calming effect on people? Oh, this is wonderful. The world is going to shit in a handbasket. Okay, no. Emotional stress, psychological stress, increases the viscosity, the serum levels of fat because your body is under stress. Mental stress elicits hemoconcentration with associated increase in serum lipid levels, hemostatic factors, and blood viscosity. So when we're looking at blood viscosity, does that mean that stress causes those cells to clump together? It thickens the blood. Okay, so this is hugely important that we look at physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. So anything that might cause a psychological stress, okay, would be bad for the blood. Okay, does that make sense? God, I'm looking forward to censorship being gone so we can just talk normal. Okay, that's the second half, by the way. That's the Dr. BVIP. So when we look at the bronchioles, you've got smooth muscle. You have muscles that are inside of those airways. So if they constrict, they close it off. They dilate, they open it up. Remember nasal diaphragmatic breathing? That nitric oxide opens up the bronchioles. Okay, that's why nasal breathing is so gosh darn important. But when we're looking at asthmatic, you're looking at increased mucus production, constriction of the airways. That's why they'll do a steroid or a sympathetic stimulant, which forces those mucous membranes or forces those bronchioles open. I mean, horrible. Now, it's interesting. The World Health Organization and Lancet both agree that asthma, okay, even though asthmatics have 10 times the amount of mucus and they have constriction of the bronchioles or bronchus, now they're saying that it's a disease of the privileged classes, a disease of affluent societies. Now, why would that be? Well, in rural societies where they have exposure to a ton of different pathogens, okay, they have a low prevalence, okay? Unpasteurized milk. Why? What's in unpasteurized milk? Tons of bacteria, tons of healthy fats, okay? Persistence of pets, large families. Again, people that have a large exposure to multiple different pathogens, it's really good for your body. Can you imagine a society that's so freaked out from misinformation that they're using Purell on their hands, Purell on their kids, I mean, spraying everybody with Lysol and disinfectants. Just know that hospitals, they have around 128,000 deaths a year because of the hygiene, because of these super bugs. And this is actually what we're creating. So looking at how the body is actually designed, you're designed to have a symbiotic relationship with this. British Medical Journal. The environment rich in microorganism benefits in building an infant's resistance to asthma. World Health Organization. Environmental agents that protect against asthma are extremely important, probably holds the best chance for success at prevention and control of the disease. So healthy environmental stimulus of your immune system, of your normal flora is actually really, really good for you. So do not cover your children in plastic. Okay. Now this is the UCLA Public School of Health, Department of Epidemiology. Okay, it's not me saying this. Okay, so bitch at them. What do they call them? Truthers, or what do they call them? Fact checkers. Okay. DPT tetanus vaccine appears to increase the risk of allergies related to respiratory symptoms in children and adults. Well, of course it does, because you're injecting foreign proteins in there, stimulate an inflammatory response. Antibiotic use, very dangerous. Okay, why? Because it kills normal flora. Okay, anti means against, bio means life. So you're getting these antibiotics. It damages your gut flora, but they also have antibiotics, triclosan, in soaps. Okay, and you're breathing this stuff in. It's mind-blowing to think that we have this problem. Now, glyphosate is the main ingredient in the most powerful herbicide used everywhere. Like if you've ever heard of GMO, genetically modified, the majority of that modification is to accept this herbicide, which kills the weeds but lets the plant live. That's the modification. The problem is it's an antibiotic and it's a mineral chelator. And so what do they say here? MIT, Dr. Stephanie Seneff. Glyphosate is the most important factor in developing multiple chronic diseases and conditions that have become prevalent in westernized societies. Of course it is, because you're eating this. Now you might say, well, no, it's just sprayed on some plants and some corn and a bunch of other stuff that maybe are fed to animals. Well, this one here, a real cell impact glyphosate herbicides residues in food, feed, or the environment, thus must be considered, and their classifications has carcinogens, causes cancer, mutates certain cells, reprotoxics, so it can negatively affect the reproductive areas of human beings. And if you're curious, sperm counts have gone down, everything. Now, what's interesting, Bt toxins. Now, Bt, it's a corn that produces a certain type of pollen that is its own pesticide. So it destroys the digestive tract of insects. Now, the shikimate pathway of insects. Now, you might say, well, cool, corn producing its own pesticide, what could possibly go wrong? No, I'm totally kidding. What could possibly go wrong if corn is producing something that's poisonous that destroys the gastrointestinal tract of insects, okay? And then the cows eat it. You might think, damn, okay, could that be embedded into the meat and then survive the cooking process and get inside of the mom, and then survives mom's digestion and get inside of the kids? That's what I would think. And sure enough, at the Journal of Reproductive Toxicology, Sherbrooke University Hospital in Quebec found corn's Bt toxin in the blood of pregnant women and in their babies, as well as in non-pregnant women. Now, granted, when this stuff came out, it was labeled GRAS, or generally recognized as safe. Now, sometimes you may take years to introduce something into a population that's never been done before in order to find out if there's a lot of negatives. Okay, does that make sense? How long should you test something? A couple of months, a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years? Or maybe stick with just organic and just see what it's like in 20, 30 years. Because we looked at this at the thalidomide, okay, the babies, they turned out with flippers. There's a lot of things. Vioxx killed more people than the Vietnam War. So there's a lot of drugs and chemicals that have gone through the approval process that ended up causing cancer or mutagenesis or some type of reproductive toxicology. This is out of reproductive toxicology. 93% of all women had the GM corn in their blood. 80% of the babies had it in their blood. Passed it from the babies when the baby was in the uterus. Now, 19 mammal studies, commercialized genetically modified soybeans, maize, 80% of all genetically GMO organisms cultivated on a large scale after they were modified to tolerate the pesticide. Several convergent data appeared to indicate liver and kidney problems as the endpoint of GMO diets, which reveal that kidneys in particular were affected, concentrations of 43.5% of all disrupted parameters in males, where the liver is more specifically disrupted in females. Now, you might think, wow, this is affecting males and females different, and in the mammal study, what does it do to humans? No, don't worry about it. It's generally recognized as safe. So I'm just bringing that up only because we're looking at certain medical procedures that are forced on the public that are brand new that don't have any long-term studies. So now we're going to go over another breathing method called conscious breathing. And this is great if you've ever meditated. Okay, this is one of the greatest meditations that you can do, where you breathe in for a count of 8, okay? And I'm just doing 8 as like the average because you're supposed to breathe out twice as long as you breathe in. So you breathe in for a count of 8, you hold it for a period of time. Say beginner, it's easy to hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds. You breathe out twice as long as you breathe in. So you breathe out for 16 seconds, and then you hold your air with no air in it for at least 5 to 10 seconds. Now, masters can hold it 30 seconds, and then you breathe into 8 and repeat it. And this is great because when you're meditating, if you've ever meditated before, you want to get to the O state where you're calmed down. Now, if you're sitting, okay, comfortably and you're going to do the meditation, breathing is one of the greatest things that you can concentrate on to get your mind focused on something. So if you're breathing in for a count of 8, hold it for a count of 10, breathe out for a count of 16, then hold it with no air in for a count of 10. And you might be saying, how can he talk with no air in his mouth? I'm kidding you. I'm not really holding my breath. Okay, so you breathe, you hold it for about a count of 10, and then you breathe in when like at the end. So this is conscious breathing, and it's fantastic. It's one of the greatest things to focus in on. I'm up to about 25 seconds holding it with all the air in and holding it out and having a good smooth rhythm. But one of the greatest ways that you can do it. But make sure you're diaphragmatic breathing. Now, when we're looking at lung health, we're looking at the nervous system, we're looking at bacteria, we're looking at the normal flora. Just know that you have no reason to be afraid of the natural microflora on our planet. Okay, it is part of you. You are a symbiote. You have 70 trillion cells. You got 10 times those cells of bacteria, and you got 10 times the bacteria of the viruses. So this is huge. You got about 2 to 3 pounds of bacteria in your gut that are actually essential. Last week when we talked about digestion, you found out how important these bacteria are. Viruses. Philip Sharp, Nobel Prize winner, MIT. We are 50% viral. Your DNA is viral. That means that viruses actually have a function in our environment positive. Without viruses, you would not be you. You would not be here. So it's illogical to have fear for this. Now, certain viruses are bacteriophages. They destroy certain negative bacteria. They outnumber your bacteria 10 to 1. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, we got this. Now, the British Medical Journal says viral infections are actually beneficial to asthma. Why? Because we're designed to have these colds and flus in order to strengthen the immune system. And what do they say? The cure for the common cold is actually the common cold. Raw milk. Okay, it's interesting because when we talk about raw milk, a lot of people say, "Oh my God, only animals that are growing up should drink raw milk, and that's one of the worst things for human beings. That it's too many calories and everything else." And that's true a lot, but there's a lot of northern cultures that only had raw milk proteins for during the winter, and it stores really good. You can store it in the form of butter and cream and fermented milk and yogurts and things. So we utilize this or fermented coconut milk in order to rebuild the gut flora of a lot of people. Now, children who drank raw milk had a 41% reduction in developing asthma and hay fever. Children who drank raw milk that was boiled before drinking had no less asthma than those children drinking pasteurized milk. So it's actually the normal gut, the bacteria inside of there that's so beneficial. Tylenol is one of the craziest things out there. If you ask any doctor in the world, how does this work, doc? They will say, we don't know. But we do know it depletes glutathione, which protects the brain and the body and immune system. It depletes you of that. It has a side effect of reducing pain and fever. Why would you want to reduce a fever? Okay, I mean, it's one of the craziest drugs out there. If you had received the medication once per year, you had a 70% increase in asthma. Once per month, you had a 540% increase in asthma. Okay, don't even give this to your neighbors or friends that you don't like. Okay, that's bad karma. Okay, and it depletes glutathione, which is the number one antioxidant that protects your lungs and your brain. This is hugely important. So when you're talking asthma, get rid of the Tylenol. Glutathione is excellent for you. Look at the cruciferous family. So cauliflower, broccoli, kale. I mean, it's incredible. Vitamin C. Now, this is one thing that smoking depletes. Not only does tobacco have a lot of chemicals in there, which are addictive and toxic and poisonous, okay, but it does deplete your body of vitamin C as well. And if you get it from whole food form, you're actually going to be working well. So in order to keep your body healthy, you got to use the lungs. Vitamin A, fantastic. Carrots, sweet potatoes, anything orange. It literally helps. And this is why when we're talking about health, like now particularly, we talk about blood health first. Because if you're dehydrated or toxic, the blood cells start clumping together. That means it can't get through the lungs. We talk about the nervous system second. You got to restore the nerve supply to the diaphragm. You got to get that working. And if you look, you've got two good blood filters. One is the kidneys. Malic acid in apple juice actually helps clean the kidneys. That's ideal. Beta carotene from the carrot juice actually helps clean the lungs. Okay, that's ideal. But you can't help the lungs unless you get the blood healthy, you get digestion healthy. So when we talk about the health of the lungs, we look at the nervous system first. Why? Because if you're in a sympathetic dominant state, you're not going to have good nerve supply to those lungs. If you're in a parasympathetic or a good autonomic balance, you've got good nervous system. You restore the nerve supply to the diaphragm, C3, C4, C5. You get the pressure off of the respiratory and cardiac center, the brainstem up here. That works. Regular exercise. What is that? Diaphragmatic breathing. If you are a paraplegic, you can diaphragmatic breathe. If you're sitting at home watching, the sporting events, there's sporting events on Thanksgiving, right? Yeah, okay. I was raised with girls. Okay, we listened to show tunes. I'm not kidding. Okay, it was, I mean, I couldn't tell you to sing My Fair Lady almost from heart. Okay, but, whatever you're doing, diaphragmatic breathe. Fantastic. Proper nutrition. This means you're going to eat like your great-grandparents ate. I know they were crazy. They only ate organic, whole food, seasonal. Okay, and did they have pesticides and glyphosates on it? No. Okay, you're just going to eat the way your great-grandparents ate. And you got to have sufficient rest so your body can regenerate. Okay, can you imagine anybody with chronic illness or disease, and I'm talking inflammatory bowel disease, anxiety, stress, depression, cancer, anything, waking up in the morning and say, God, I slept great. Okay, no, because sleep is when your body regenerates. And look at our sleep videos because you can reset your circadian rhythms. And then prayer and meditation. If you've never had prayer and meditation, I totally recommend it because your body is more energy than matter. And if you're doing that conscious breathing, because some people have trouble shutting their brain off and allowing or talking to a power greater than themselves, it's incredible. Now, we're going to get into the sensitive portion of this because we are in a tyrannical society now that does advocate censorship. So we're going to get into the area that I don't even want to say let's go Brandon, but let's you like how that's kind of passive aggressive, okay? Like I would never say this. So I really appreciate you watching this on Facebook and YouTube. If you're on Dr. BVIP, you're not going to see this any interruption. But we are going to get into some stuff that will be a challenge. Even though I'm going to present in the next portion the websites, the URLs, the facts, okay, of what's going on in the world.